Good morning, and today we're going to look at the median of a triangle. Now, the word median is a word that you are familiar with from statistics when you have done statistics before. The mean, the median, and the mode. And you should already know that the median means the middle. So that's an indication that this is going to involve midpoints, median and middle. Okay. This one's quite similar to the altitude in the sense that it comes from a corner again. So it's only the perpendicular bisector that comes from the line. The median and the altitude both come from corners, from the vertices. Okay. And it's going to go to the opposite side in the middle, like this. So rather than like the altitude, where it comes from the line and it goes straight down at right angles to the opposite side, it goes to the opposite side in the middle. It meets the midpoint of the opposite side. Okay, so have a think about how we might find the equation of this line. We need the gradient, we need a point. Okay, so what we're going to do, if we're given all three coordinates on this triangle here, how will we find the gradient and the point? Okay, well, we'll have the point given often. That'll be given. Okay, so we'll have the point, but how are we going to find the gradient? Well, we're going to have to find the gradient by finding the midpoint of these two, which will be that point there. And then using that coordinate and that coordinate, work out your gradient. Now, be very wary of this one. This is not an altitude question. You do not need to find the gradient. The gradient of that line there bears absolutely no relation to the gradient of that line. Okay? Only when it's the altitude that the gradient of that helps you to find the gradient of that. So we need to get that coordinate, and that's what will allow us to get the gradient. Okay? Now, for information, again, the three medians will meet at a point right in the middle of the triangle, and we call that the centroid of a triangle. More for information. Okay, so here we have three coordinates from a triangle, and we're asked to find the median from A. So as always, sketch the triangle. If it's not sketched for you, sketch the triangle. So here I've just drawn a random triangle, ABC, and I've drawn a line in that shows that that line is going to the middle of the opposite side. So I can see it's the BC that are on the opposite sides, and there the little marks just to indicate that that's the middle of that. Now again, that can help to visualise what you're doing. I've just labelled that other little point there M for midpoint. Okay, so we're going to find the midpoint here. We're going to then use that to find the gradient from these two. And then we've got all the information we need, and we can just go ahead and find the equation of the median. Okay, so here we have the coordinates of B and C. Now, if people don't sketch this, they start using the wrong coordinates, mixing everything up and losing lots of marks. They have done a lot of working, but they lose a lot of marks because they're using the wrong coordinates. So a sketch is so important. Okay. So remember the midpoint. We add the two x's, we half them. We add the two y's and we half them. And if you can't remember what you do you add the two x's? Do you subtract the two x's? What do we do? Then pick two very simple numbers like 3 and 5, where you know the middle of those is 4. So you would know that you would add the 3 and the 5 to get 8, to half it to get 4. You wouldn't subtract the 3 and the 5, that wouldn't give you 4. So just a check with some simple numbers can help you. Okay, so we're going to do 3 plus -5 divided by 2, and 2 plus -8 divided by 2. 3 plus -5 is -2 over 2, and 2 plus -8 is -6 over 2. So we have -2 divided by 2, which is -1, and -6 divided by 2, which is -3. So we now have the midpoint here. So now I've worked out that that point there is -1, -3, and I now need to use that to get the gradient of that line. We don't need to work out the gradient of this line. It would be a waste of working if you were to do that, because it bears no resemblance to the gradient of that line. Okay, so we're now going to work out the gradient between A and M. So there we have noted our A coordinate and our M coordinate, and we're going to use that to find the gradient. Okay, now you'll notice that I've put the gradient formula down again and again and again. At a higher level, you should start to get used to that, so much so that you might feel you don't need to write the formula or label the tops of them x1, y1, x2, y2. I don't have to do that anymore. You don't get any extra points for doing that or any extra marks. It's just there to help you. If you still need to use it, that's fine. But if you don't feel you need to use it by just thinking, I know that I start here and I do that number, take away that number, then I go to my two inside numbers, but always go back to the start one again. That one, take away that, is your bottom. So if you know what you're doing, just go straight ahead and start putting your numbers in. Okay, so -3 minus -6, what's your double negatives? And -1 minus 4. So that will be -3 plus 6, which is 3, and that'll be a -5 there. Now the numbers are not going to be simplified, but please don't leave your answer like that. Make sure when you're putting it in that you've got an overall negative there. Okay, see how I've changed that? Don't like that left like that. In fact, you would lose a mark. So leave your answer as an overall negative 3/5. Now we don't have to do anything with this to make it a perpendicular gradient. Just remember the diagram that we had and make sure you're working it out using logic and common sense. So we've now got the gradient of the line AM. And we could use the coordinate A, or if we wanted to, we could use the coordinate M. Okay, I've chosen to use the coordinate A, which is your 4, -6, and I've got my gradient there, but I could equally have used my coordinate M. That would have worked as well, because that's also on that median line. Okay, put it into the y minus b equals m bracket x minus a formula. Okay, watch out double negatives. So remember, that's your A, that's your B, that's your M. So y minus -6 equals -3/5 x minus 4. Okay, so let's tidy up the double negative, and then let's take the 5 over to the left hand side. Now this is where you have got to watch here. Sometimes people are a bit confused when they have the negative in front of that. They say, what happens to that negative? What I usually do is I leave my negative there beside my 3, and when I take my 5 over, it's just a +5. Because remember, one of these is positive, one of these is negative to get an overall negative. Okay, so I would just keep my negative with my 3 and leave that as a -3, and take my 5 over to the left hand side as a +5. Okay, so I've just taken my 5 over, 5y plus 6 times your 5, kept it all positive, and my negative's now just attached to the 3 there. So it doesn't go with both of them. The negative stays with one or the other, okay? So I just keep it with the top number, and when I take my bottom number over, I don't have to worry about negatives. But now I have to worry about my negatives and multiply out my bracket by the -3. Okay, so that leaves us with the same on the left-hand side and a -3x plus a 12 on the right. So remember the rules now. We have to take the 30 over to the right or the 12 over to the left. So I'm going to take my 30 over and make it a -30. Or I'll take my 12 over and make it a -12. Okay, now that would be absolutely fine to do that. What I've chosen to do this time is a little bit different. I brought my -3x over to the left hand side to make it positive. I have my 5 there already. I have my 30 there, and I've taken my 12 over and made it a takeaway 12. So 30 takeaway 12 is where the 18 has come from. I've actually turned that one into the general equation of the straight line, but I didn't have to. I could have taken that 30 over to that side and dealt with it that way, and it would have been a -18 over there. So just remember, your alternative rearrangements are absolutely fine. So we're now on to exercise 1M, and we have got questions 1, C and D, and then question 2. And as always, ask your teacher for help, or if you need help to check if your answers are correct with them being in a slightly different rearrangement, then do so. Make sure you know that your questions are correct, and if they're not correct, make sure you see where you've gone wrong, and if you need to get your teacher to help you with that, then do so. Okay, now take care and good luck.